Good morning. Welcome back into Shaw Locals Bears Insider Podcast. I am Kyle Nabors along with Sean Hammond. It is Friday morning, February 9th. We are just a couple of days away from the Super Bowl. Chiefs 49ers out in Vegas. Of course, last night we got some pretty awesome news about three former Chicago Bears going into the 2024 class of the Hall of Fame. Sean, we got a lot of stuff to dive into this morning, but really, that's where we want to start. But how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. It was good to see some Bears going into the Hall of Fame last night. That was exciting for Bears fans.
Yeah, of course, Devin, Hester, Julius Peppers, and Steve McMichael. And, really starting with Mongo for the generation, I think, before us. Like, I was born 87. So I grew up with my parents loving the 85 Bears and really kind of idolizing that group. So I always knew who Mongo was, right? But I don't remember his heyday. Had a chance to talk with him a couple times over the year. Wonderful guy. Very well deserved. Wish it would have come a little sooner for him. But absolutely glad he was still with us to see it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm glad that he's still here to see this. I saw some videos from last night. It looked like he was watching on the TV from home, and that's cool to see. With a couple of close friends and family. That's really cool to see that he, can enjoy this. And yeah, it's taken 2 decades since he was first on the ballot, and that's a shame. But he's in, and that's really all that matters. It's really cool to see that. I'm with you, Kyle. Like I'm not old enough to remember him playing, but certainly, I've heard the stories from people in my family as well.
What's kind of odd is what I remember Mongo most is actually professional wrestling, because when he was doing that was right when I was probably about 10 or 11 years old, which I think for most of us, if any of who's watched professional wrestling, I think that's kind of like the sweet spot, right? So I was probably about 10 or 11. He showed up on WCW Monday Nitro, and I was like, oh, why the hell is Mongo on professional wrestling? But I'll take it, right?
Yeah, right.
I knew who he was, knew that he was a good football player, but didn't recognize or realize at that age. I just knew he was a famous Bear. I didn't realize how good of a player he had been in his heyday. So cool to see him go in, Sean, and of course also cool to see Devin Hester go in. Someone obviously we did see a lot more.
Yeah.
You've had this debate surrounding Devin Hester. Because he's going in mainly pretty much as a special teams ace. Well deserved, though, when you look at his body of work, the best to ever do it.
There was nobody like him. I mean, it's hard to I'm sure there's younger fans now who it's hard to explain it to. Like, you did not want to miss a kick return or a punt return, and normally that's when you go grab a snack. That's when you zone out. You look at your phone now. We didn't have phones back then for a lot of his career, not like we do now. And yeah, he made those plays so exciting. You look at I think it's 20 return touchdowns. That's just insane. And every time he touched the ball, you believed. If you were a Bears fan, you believed that he was going to bring that thing back because he did it so many times, and it was just so electric to watch. I'm glad that he's getting in.
Of course, Devin Hester was insanely fast, but we talk about football smarts and how when a lot of the guys that end up Hall of Fame, they're not just really good athletes, great football players on the field, but they get it, right? I don't know how else to explain it. They are able to visualize the field in some way. And Devin was incredible of being able to kind of picture in his mind, where he needed to go with the football in his hands once he got it there. Dave Tope was a part of that, did a really good job with that scheme over the years. But incredible fun. And, the thing that's been making the rounds, of course, is him returning the opening kickoff of the Super Bowl, which I love watching it. It's still fun to see that moment. But actually, the one that always sticks out to me is the Arizona game, the Monday Night Football comeback.
That's a great one.
He returned 2 in that game. And I'll always remember the second one. I can't remember who was on the color commentary. It was on ESPN that night. So
Mm-hmm.
And I always remember the color commentator on the second one just going, "I don't get it," like just like befuddled that they would kick to him again. And that's where Devin Hester was. It was just like you were rolling the dice every single time you kicked the ball to him. And that's pretty incredible to think about in the
That
way.
was an epic classic game, Kyle. I mean, the offense was terrible that night. And the fact that they somehow won that football game is remarkable. I mean, he put the team on his back.
I remember my college roommate at the time jumping over the back of our couch when they won that game. And I'm going to use this as a bit of a transition really quickly because that same friend has been texting me for months now, Sean. He at some point he had put in 2 separate bets, like with bonus bets for D'Amico Ryans to win Coach of the Year.
Oh man.
And like I've been telling him all along, like, don't worry about it. Like they're gonna pick him. Like Ryans is gonna win Coach of the Year. And then I see last night that Stefanski won it by 1 first place vote, and I was just like, oh no.
That vote was so close. Yeah, we can talk about some of those award winners. That one, I for the PFWA awards, I voted for D'Amico Ryans, and I believe he won that one.
He did.
But yeah, obviously the big one is the AP awards, and
it's only the second time they've differed, the AP and the
really?
Pro Football. Yeah, it's only the second time. My friend was texting me. This is the second time I believe since 1992 it's been different.
Wow.
He has no betting luck whatsoever. He really should stop.
Yeah, that's tough. You know, I'm a little surprised by that. Yeah, obviously it was close. I mean,
I'm a little surprised.
One vote difference.
I'm a little surprised, but I can't really disagree with it. I think both of those guys are really good coaches for Coach of the Year. Like what the Browns overcame to make the playoffs, I think is pretty remarkable.
It is.
I leaned Ryan. It sounds as you did, just because you're talking about a rookie quarterback. It was 3-13 or 3-14
the turnaround
the previous year.
Was just remarkable.
To me, like that's an even bigger thing than what you saw in Cleveland. But so that was controversial. I think the other one that was controversial, at least I found it to be controversial, with Joe Flacco winning Comeback Player of the Year. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. This was it was such a tough one from the perspective of like, yeah, Joe Flacco. What he did was pretty impressive. Obviously, to come in mid-season and do that as a quarterback, as a guy who people kind of figured his career was pretty much over. At the same time, I mean, Damar Hamlin is like, we may never see a situation quite like that ever again.
He died on the field last year. And like,
it doesn't, I don't care how many tackles he had, the fact that he is here.
Yes.
And then the fact that he is, able to play at all, even, practice, whatever, like it's just a crazy story.
Joe Flacco, like, it's not like an Alex Smith thing where like he broke his leg in 2 places and like Joe Flacco was out of the league because he sucked. Like, and I sucked is not like Joe Flacco, very good QB in his heyday. He's actually been a pretty effective backup after that. But like, come on, like that just seems silly to me.
I think it's silly. I don't have an AP vote, but I think what I saw on social media was there were several people who left him off their ballot entirely, and that's probably what cost Damar Hamlin the award. And I think that's crazy. I mean,
how do you leave him off your ballot?
How do you leave him off? That's crazy to me. I mean, I don't care how much you contributed, just to be back out there on the field is amazing. And it's a great story. I don't know why you would vote against that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you everyone who is joining us live this morning. We appreciate it. You can follow Sean on X at Sean_Hammond. He's also on Instagram at Bears_Insider. You can find myself on Twitter or X at Kyle Nabors, and all of our work is at Bears_Insider on Twitter. Of course, go to shawlocal.com. All of our content is up there right now, including our latest from Mark Silverman. He wrote an open letter to Caleb Williams this week, in Caleb Williams camp, which is very interesting. We'll get to that in a little bit. But before we completely get away from the Hall of Fame talk, the other guy I wanted to hit on was Julius Peppers, Sean. Another guy we got to see his entire career. really, whether that was in Carolina up close and personal during his time in Chicago or then in Green Bay, a tremendous player throughout his career. Consistent as consistent can be, Julius
Yeah.
Peppers.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing I remember is just like that was such an exciting time when the Bears signed him because that was he was a household name. That was one of the best pass rushers in football at that time. And the you felt like the Bears, they had Cutler, they had you felt like they weren't that far off. And obviously that first year things really worked out well. They got to the NFC Championship game, and it was just a really exciting time to have a dude like that on your team was fun. And it's too bad that it didn't last longer. 4 years feels like a blip on the radar now, but he had a really long 17-year career, and you're right, was so consistent no matter who he was playing for.
He ended up playing 17 years. And that the Green Bay years ended up being, I remember when the Bears parted way with Julius Peppers, thinking to myself, like, all right, he's kind of on his last legs. Like, and he went to Green Bay, and I didn't think it was going to be a complete bust, but I just kind of thought he would continue to tail off. And then it didn't happen. He just continued to play pretty well. And I believe if I'm not losing my mind, he didn't go back to Carolina for 2 years at the end, and actually ended up playing pretty decent there as well.
Yeah, it wasn't like he signed a one-day contract with the Panthers. Like, he went back and played, and he was still playing at a high level. And it's a shame that he went to the Packers. That was a bummer. And yeah, he was still productive for them. That almost hurt a little bit more if you're the Bears.
Yeah, Rick Gonzalez is checking in this morning, and he had said, well, the one thing we hold over the Packers these days is Hall of Famers, 39 to 34. How in the world are they counting Peppers for the Packers? I would have thought he would go in as a Panther. So, Rick, Sean and I were talking about this actually right before we jumped on because we had seen this. We were trying to figure it out, or trying to figure out how that works. And if maybe, Rick, you can tell us. Neither of us had seen that. We're not sure. I know, like, the Baseball Hall of Fame, like, they have to select the team that they're going to represent or whatever. But I didn't know if that was the same for football. And if that is the case, Packers does seem odd to me over Carolina, Sean.
Yeah, if anybody in the chat knows exactly whether they have to pick a team or not, comment, let us know, because yeah, I would be surprised by that as well, especially because he's from North Carolina. I would think he would be a Panthers guy, but I don't know that they have to pick a team for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I know that is a baseball thing. I don't know that they have to do that in football.
Yeah, Rick says when you Google it, that's what comes up. So Rick, I don't know, man. I'm not entirely sure that's correct. Either way, it doesn't really matter. He could wear a jersey for all three of those teams if he wanted to. He was incredible in all three spots. I like this from Mike B. Phil Emery couldn't cut Peppers fast enough to give Jared Allen even more money. My God, what an idiot. Yeah, that did not work out very well.
No, that did not. Jared Allen was up for the Hall of Fame as well, but did not get it.
He will.
He will. This was his and Pepper's first year on the ballot. So Pepper's got the first year nod. We'll see with him.
Let's see. I'm going to see 2023 Hall of Fame NFL nominees. I'm going to see if I can pull this up quickly because I was looking at this the other day, and absolutely like shocked at the amount of guys that I thought would make it in here. Right? Okay. Here, I got this pulled up quickly. I'm just going to run through the names.
Mm-hmm.
Jared Allen, Willie Anderson, Rondé Barber, Dwight Freeney, Devin Hester, Torrey Holt, Andre Johnson, Albert Lewis, Darrell Revis, Joe Thomas, Zach Thomas, DeMarcus Ware, Reggie Wayne, Patrick Willis, and Darren Woodson. Like, that is like, and you can only vote for 5.
That's
guys.
the thing. Yeah. Only five modern era guys can get in. That was
why I was wondering if Devin Hester was going to make it this year, just because the list was so good. Like, Zach Thomas is a Hall of Famer. Andre Johnson is a Hall of Famer. Jared Allen, Dwight Freeney, Hall of Famers in my book. So like, these are guys that I think have really good cases to get in really quickly. I wonder where Reggie Wayne. I haven't looked at Reggie Wayne in terms of historical numbers, but offhand I feel like Reggie Wayne is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly when I hear his name in my head, that makes sense. I haven't dug into the numbers. I don't have a vote, so I haven't really dug into the numbers. But in my head, I hear that name and it's like, yeah, he was a staple when he was in the league. Like, he was absolutely one of the top receivers. I don't know. It seems like you should be able to get more than 5 in. There's so many good options. Yeah, it's like you see this list of the top 15 and you have to remind yourself that, they're going to whittle that down to 5. So it's kind of a popularity contest until you get to those final 5. And we don't know the results of the votes. We don't know who finished 6th, 7th, who finished 15th or whatever. You would hope that they could let a few more people in the future at some point.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to review that at some point, maybe up that number a little bit. But Sean, let's move on and talk. Before we get into Bears, not a lot of news out of Hallis Hall this week. Or actually, let's go to Bears. We'll finish up with the Super Bowl. It's been kind of a quiet week at Hallis Hall. Give us an update. Where things kind of stand.
Yeah, I mean, still haven't spoken with the new coordinators. Don't know when that's going to happen. It might happen this week after the Super Bowl. I'm sure a lot of NFL personnel have been on the move, at the Senior Bowl last week, and some of them are probably down there at the Super Bowl. I know that's a big event with, a lot of handshaking and stuff going on. There might be some coaches down there. These guys have kind of been all over the place, and so yeah, I mean, I hope we get to talk to these coordinators soon. Things are obviously busy. They got the combine coming up, but it's been pretty quiet. We also got to kind of keep an eye on the the franchise tag thing is going to be coming up before we know it in about 2 weeks. It's a big window. I think it's like over a week long where they can make that decision. But hopefully Ryan Poles and Jalen Johnson are having some discussions because if they can't get on the same page, I fully expect that the franchise tag is a possibility there.
Sports Chicago Style, aka Triple R, says Bojack's cryptic bye-bye tweet. I don't know if you saw that this morning, Sean.
I did not.
Yeah, so
I'm gonna pull it up though.
Yeah, he posted something cryptic.
He said new beginnings.
Yeah, new beginnings. Not sure what exactly that means. No idea. Interesting tweet. My initial thought was maybe he's changing his number.
I don't know. He already changed his number once. Is he going to change it again?
I know. New beginnings. I don't know what that would mean, though. What's his contract situation?
Yeah, let me pull it up. It's a hefty sum. Like they could save a good amount of money if they cut him. They would save $12.5 million. He's set to make $18 million against the cap. And if they cut him, they will save 12.5, and they'll eat 5.5. Look, yeah, like if they're worried about the injury concerns and thought maybe he fell off a little bit last year, I can absolutely see that happening. At the same time, that's going to open up a hole in your starting defense, and that's a hole that you got to fix then.
Yeah, given the financials, his age, the injury concerns, I could see them parting ways with him. The problem there is you're creating a hole on a team that is now getting into win now mode, and he's still playing at the very least he's playing above average.
Yeah.
So, you're not cutting him. Like if you're cutting Eddie Jackson, I don't think you're going young at that position. You're pretty young at several other spots in your secondary still. Like, he's also a pretty big leader in that secondary vocally.
So. The leadership thing matters too. I mean, he is at this point one of the longest tenured Bears, and he is not afraid to speak his mind. And like all those guys in the secondary, whether they play safety, cornerback, whatever, they look up to him, and that does matter too on some level. But I am with you where like there's a world in which they cut him, and I can absolutely see that happening. Like I would not be shocked if that's a possibility. But yeah, I'm with you. Like I still think you would probably want a veteran guy. Are you going to go out and look? I know $18 million is a lot of money to pay a safety for one season. You could probably find somebody. You could probably find some veteran for half that. But I don't know. Are you going to cut a guy and just have to fill that same hole with money again? I don't know if that makes sense.
Triple R Sports Chicago says not in win now mode, still building. Players can't stay forever.
Yeah.
They are in win now mode. There's no doubt about it. When your head coach is on the hot seat, which Matt Eberflus is on the hot seat, there's no way around it. When you've gone from 3 wins to 7 wins, it doesn't matter that you're most likely looking at a rookie quarterback. They're ready to win. And I'm not saying they're ready to be a Super Bowl contender, but they expect to be a competitive team that is
competitive over 500. Yeah.
They expect to be competing for a playoff spot next year. And if they're not, then some heads are going to roll at Hallis Hall.
That defense we saw the second half of the season is a playoff defense. Like it's that they're playing that high a level. Now I do question, like, this might be a win now year for Matt Eberflus, but is it for Ryan Poles? I'm not so sure.
Well, and then you get into the organizational philosophy of
that'll take us down a deep rabbit hole that we've talked about many times.
Yeah, let's not spin down that hole too many times. But yeah, Triple R, it's win now. And like I said, that doesn't mean win the Super Bowl now, but they are in a mode where they're looking to stack wins. They want to build off last year, no matter who is at quarterback. Now that doesn't mean that you have to keep Eddie Jackson to do that. You just can't throw in a replacement level player. Or when I say replacement level, I'm not talking using like a baseball term there, right? Like replacement level is average. Eddie Jackson is clearly an above average player. I would not feel very comfortable just plugging in your average veteran guy there where maybe he's on the downside of his career and you're hoping to get 1 or 2 more years out of him, right? To me, you're either sticking with the veteran leadership that you know, or you're trying to make some kind of a splash there, whether that's I don't even know who's available in free agency at the safety position.
I haven't looked at safety too much, but yeah, I'm with you. I think they need a veteran in that spot. I think I don't know that you would cut Eddie Jackson and then want to be drafting a safety high in the draft. Like I think you want to find a veteran to just plug that hole as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what else is going around at Hallis Hall, Sean.
Not a whole lot. Yeah, it's been pretty quiet. We'll it's gonna start ramping up here in a little bit with the combine, but I saw Sylvie was writing about Caleb Williams again for the second week in a row. He gets lots of comments anytime he starts talking about Caleb Williams.
He was texting me yesterday that the pitchforks were out for him again. It's like 2 in a row where I don't feel like what he's saying is outlandish by any means, but it's funny. I texted him back. There is a sizable portion of the fan base which is very much still in camp Justin Fields, and I don't think they're moving anywhere. And anything that isn't Justin Fields at the starting quarterback is going to draw a sharp reaction from them. And what's kind of crazy to me, and I was saying to Sylvie, how often, like I get it, like you've heard me say multiple times, like I don't believe Justin Fields is the bust. Don't get me wrong, but how many times in Chicago history has a quarterback had 3 seasons of development and like where 99% of the fan base isn't ready to run him out of town? You know what I mean? Like there's still a lot of people that are like on board with Justin Fields. Yeah, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, definitely he's getting some heat right now.
Yeah, and that's to be expected. I mean, we saw how he kind of galvanized a big part of the fan base last season and really the last 2 seasons. And yeah, it's going to be hard if they do move on from him. It's going to be hard for those fans. There's probably going to be some upset people. We're going to kind of have to see, though. We don't know what the Bears are going to do. I think there's a lot of teams across the league that would absolutely love to be in position to take Caleb Williams. Uh, and so like, yeah, there's going to be fans on both sides of the boat. I thought Sylvie, I mean, he was essentially just giving reasons why Caleb Williams should be excited to be a Bear, right? Is that what the
Right.
column was?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's there's absolutely reasons why any, rookie quarterback would be excited to any quarterback, rookie, veteran, whatever, to join this Bears team right now that seems like it's on an upward trajectory, had a good end to the season. And yeah, I would think any quarterback would be excited to join that team.
Yeah. I think part of it, the genesis for Sylvie's column came from, the Washington rumors and the Cliff Kingsbury hire. I don't think the Cliff Kingsbury hire to Washington is coincidence, by the way. That doesn't mean that the Bears have any interest in trading the number 1 pick. What I do read that as is Washington is interested, though, in acquiring that number 1 overall pick. And if they haven't made an offer, I'm pretty confident that offer is coming at some point before the draft, probably, sometime during the combine or early March.
Shoot your shot, right? Like, shoot your shot, see what it's going to take to get that pick from the Bears, to pry it from their hands. I think, Ryan Poles should, of course, listen to any offers, maybe come back with a counter offer, but that doesn't mean that he has to do anything. I think I've been saying all along, ultimately, I think the Bears are going to take Caleb Williams at number 1, but you're going to listen to what other teams have to say. You're going to listen to what they're offering. Certainly Cliff Kingsbury to Washington is very intriguing in that, he coached Caleb last year, was an assistant with USC. That's potentially an offense that he could fit in. They didn't have a ton of success. I mean, I know Caleb Williams had a very nice year, but the team wise, they didn't have a ton of success last year, but I don't think that was all on the offense either.
No, the USC defense was pretty atrocious last year. I mean, Kingsbury, that's pretty transparent to me that what Washington is angling for. I know personally, I don't think I still live in the camp where if I was the GM, here's the thing. Like, I don't know what the trade offers are, right?
We don't know. No.
If Washington puts together a type of package that is at the same level or above what Carolina gave you last year, that's hard for me to pass up, and still having Justin Fields on the roster. But I don't know what that is, or what Washington's offering. It's going to be interesting. We'll probably never know what those trade packages look like. But man, what I would love to be a fly on the wall and get to know what Ryan Poles is able to consider here, because there's going to be teams they hear the chatter too about Caleb Williams and his potential desire to not be in Chicago, whether that's true or not. Teams are going to try and play on that, and teams are going to try and pry this pick away from the Bears. It just, we don't have any idea how cemented the Bears are in keeping that pick. We really don't.
And one other thing we should mention too in all this is that Caleb is from Washington, D.C. And so maybe that plays into it. We've certainly seen quarterbacks, it's been a long time, but we've seen quarterbacks try to push their way to a certain team in the draft. I'm thinking Eli Manning, and there were obviously some examples before that as well. Not to say that that's what's going to happen here, but you could see it. Well, who wouldn't want to play for their hometown team, especially they got new ownership. They seem to be, the vibes are positive for the first time in 20 plus years. And just looking at the Commanders too, they have all their first and second round picks for the next 3 years. They also have that Bears second round pick next year. Maybe you could get that back in a deal. I don't know that the Bears would want to move the pick, but certainly, the Commanders have the draft capital to try to get it from the Bears if they want to do that.
I also feel like Justin Fields is a potential landing spot for Washington. And when it comes to they do have 2 second round picks. Obviously, they have that Bears pick that you mentioned that they traded for Montez Sweat. But you also have pick number 40, I want to say, as well, that the Bears own. I'm sorry, that Washington owns.
Washington, yeah.
Or it's 40 what the Bears traded. I can't remember. Essentially, Washington had 2 early second-round picks. Like maybe that's an area where you look at for Justin Fields as well. All right, Sean. Let's. Oh, you know what? Before I go over to finish this up with the Super Bowl, I know Rick had asked about Matt Eberflus calling plays. We did get that confirmation with the hire of the defensive coordinator. Not surprised though, right?
No, I'm not surprised by that. He left it when asked about it in January after the season. He kind of left that open, said he hadn't made up his mind.
Which meant he had made up his mind.
On some level, that told me that he made up his mind. He was going to be calling plays. I say it was working. Stick with it. Why switch it up? The defense played the best it's played in the entire Matt Eberflus era, which isn't that long. It's only 2 years. But those last 8 games after you got Montez Sweat and Flus was calling plays, why change it? Just stick with it and keep doing what you're doing.
So my question here, and we don't know this from the outside, is, the defense obviously played better post Alan Williams with Matt Eberflus calling the plays. Did that at any point, or it's going to happen? It would happen. It absolutely happened at once or twice, right? Where he was worried about the defense and it kind of distracted him from his head coaching. Like, for humans, that's going to happen. Yeah. The thing is, like, how often does that happen? Because that's the issue when we talk about coordinator calling plays, head coach responsibilities. Like, I think of the Hail Marys at the end of the first half on at least 2 different occasions and the silliness there. And we don't know from the outside looking in. It's I think I've always been a bit concerned with Matt Eberflus's game management. So from that aspect, I remain concerned, but I also don't have access to know exactly like how much it does impact him.
Yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, there's plenty of coaches across the league who are calling plays for one side of the ball or the other.
Yeah, some guy, and it could be like it keeps him in the flow of the game, and it's better for him, like managing the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if Flus feels that way. And the other thing too is like, okay, Alan Williams was gone after week 1. Flus was calling plays pretty much for 16 games. You would think that if it did affect his ability to be the head coach in any way at some points, you would think he has learned from those those examples at this point and can kind of put a plan in place moving forward.
You would hope so, because we talk about going into win now mode. That's going to be under more scrutiny those next year, those in-game decisions, and he's got to get better. And people are going to question that. Can he call the play? Can he be a play caller if he has mistakes like he had last year? So he's going to have to get better at it. But I also understand, like, if his job is on the line, he had success calling the plays last year, I wouldn't give it up either.
No, it wouldn't make sense. Yeah, I mean, you don't know if you have anything beyond 2024. So do what's working, and that's what was working last year.
Rick says, if we draft Caleb, don't you think Flus will get 2 more years? What do you think, Sean?
I don't know. That's what we wondered when they drafted Justin Fields with Matt Nagy. Like, I don't think that's a sure thing. I definitely do not think that's a sure thing. Would it make sense? Yeah, totally, 100%. You don't want to be changing your head coach on your rookie quarterback 1 year in, but we've seen it before with the Bears. It wouldn't surprise me to see it again.
Rick, it's too hard to answer that right now. I would say, like, if they were a 9-8 team, like Caleb Williams looks fine, like everything seems to be coming together. Like, that's probably enough for Flus to keep his job. Like, if they regressed or didn't have any progression, I think they'd probably make the change, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to what it looks like. Yeah, if it feels like this team is heading in the right direction, I think they could absolutely stick with Flus for another year after that. Yeah. But yeah, we just gotta kind of wait and see.
All right, Sean, we got to get out of here, but we got one more football game until September. Then I get to be
a little sad. This is it.
I hate February, like post Super Bowl, before like we get to baseball season, just miserable. So we got one more game though. What do you think about this weekend?
I'm going with the quarterback who has 2 Super Bowl rings already. I'm taking the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. Um, I love the Brock Purdy story. I think it's great that he's here, and I think I can absolutely see the 49ers winning this game. I think it's going to be a close game either way. But it's hard for me not to pick the guy with 2 Super Bowl rings.
I agree. I think it's going to be kind of a low scoring game. I like both of these defenses a
Yeah,
lot. I
great
think both
point.
teams.
Great point.
I think it's going to be kind of conservative, particularly in the first half. I think they're going to be I think they're going to feel each other out here and try and figure out what works best. Because really, both of these teams, it's odd. Like you got Patrick Mahomes, but you saw that in the AFC Championship game, like where he was insane in that first half. They got the lead, and then they let their defense and Isaiah Pacheco kind of take over. I think ideally that's the way the Kansas City Chiefs want this game to go again. There's a lot of weapons on the San Francisco side of the ball. Like I just don't think that they want to shoot out. At the end of the day, though, yeah, I think that Kansas City is going to win a close one.
Yeah, that Chiefs defense, has been really, really good all year, and I think, I mean, they do get talked about, but on some level, I think they're not talked about enough. Like
They're not. They're really not.
That's a big reason why this team is here, because we saw those struggles with the wide receivers for much of the regular season. Patrick Mahomes' numbers were slightly down compared to what Patrick Mahomes is used to because of all the things they were trying to figure out on that offensive side. And this defense has carried this team. And I think that that's going to be a really tough matchup for the 49ers.
All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you, everyone who joined us live this morning. If you're finding this later, do us a favor, give us thumbs up and like the channel. If you could also leave us a comment, it helps other people find the show. Of course, you can get this anywhere you get your podcast from. Download that, get yourself a subscription. Go to shawlocal.com. You'll find all of Sean's work up there in our latest column from Mark Silverman. Everyone enjoy the Super Bowl. Have a good weekend. We'll be back with you guys next week. For Sean Hammond, I am Kyle Nabors. We'll talk to you guys later.